The Pitt game, Jason Capel said on the court after the game in earshot of a lot of folks that this North Carolina team did not want to play tough. We saw against Marquette, as we teed up last week, that Marquette was very much a team that was going to try to bully you. It's very typical of Shaka Smart's squads and how they like to play. And then Baylor, to Tommy's point from the Inside Carolina live show on Saturday, he talked about Baylor kind of being the varsity version of Marquette in a sense that they both want to mix it up. They're both really athletic. They're going to get up inside of you and they're going to be really physical. I don't think you can say this team lacks toughness anymore. Sean, have you ever seen a team over the course of a month, and if you want to use the whole season, that's fine, a season that has gone from what looked very Charmony soft to now I see a bunch of guys out there that are playing like dudes with confidence, and they're not going to be punked by anybody.
I mean, I think over the long term, UNC has had that reputation, somewhat deservedly, but also I think it's been, because when you think of UNC, you think of a team playing up tempo, a team that can, outscore people. But, they've been one of the top offensive rebounding teams over the last 15, 20 years. Obviously fell off a little bit this year, but they're still pretty good. And, you're not going to be soft and be, to be one of the top offensive rebounding teams. But for this one, I mean, you also look at the guys, and outside of Armando, you don't have the physical, you never really have the physical enforcer type of look. So I think that also plays into it. But yeah, I mean, I think that has been the knock. And I think teams, and probably going into the game, the coaches are telling them, hey, you can out physical these guys, or even going back to that Kentucky game of, hey, once these guys get frustrated, they're done. They're not talking to each other, et cetera. I think, they've shown the willingness to fight back, be physical, get up in you defensively. Now with, I also think in terms of how we were just talking about roles, going to Leaky Black, defensively, he's always had that reputation, but I think he's really taken off since that Wake Forest loss, in terms of his ability. And I think, that goes to shutting down a wing player. You have Armando down low, getting the offensive, defensive rebounds. And then you have the guards, even though they're not the biggest guys, you have them playing hard and playing tough. So I think it has been nice to see. I think some of it is more a reputation that might not be deserved, but at the same time, that has been the focus probably for each and every team going into these UNC games.
All right, Sherrell, I'm basically just going to hand you a hot mic and let you go at it. But I want to let you talk about the toughness a little bit too. And if you want to come at this from a personality standpoint, I think that might be something our listeners would like to hear. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, for sure. Some throat issues. For me, even though the Pittsburgh game, Jason Capel said that stuff and he got out and everybody heard it. I think the Louisville game at Louisville, to me, even though they lost the next game against Duke and subsequently lost a home game to Pittsburgh, to me, that's when the toughness kind of turned. Because if you remember, they had a big lead in that game and they started letting it go. It was very chippy. The guys were fouling Baycott and guys were hitting the floor. And there were some questionable calls. It was not dissimilar to the Baylor game, honestly. The lead wasn't quite as big and the stakes obviously weren't as high. But for me, that's when you start to see some growth, toughness-wise. And I think what we saw from UNC against Marquette and then the last 10 minutes against Baylor and the last 5 minutes or overtime against Baylor, that is the definition of mental toughness. We have talked about what is toughness, what is mental toughness for years on Inside Carolina podcasts and message boards and stories and everything. And if I could distill mental toughness into like one setting, it is dominating for 28 minutes the defending champion. I mean, dominating. It wasn't even close about who the better team was for the first 20 minutes. Not a question in the world. If you took somebody who'd never seen basketball, they would say, oh, the team in blue obviously is a better team, and the team in white is just happy to be there. That's what you would have seen. From then on, to potentially lose or have the biggest collapse in NCAA history, making just questionable plays over and over again. Obviously, there were some other factors at play. Don't really want to talk about that because it's been covered. But to pick yourself up off the mat when you've just been given a two-piece by Mike Tyson, essentially, and blowing that lead. To come out, Dontrez Styles, we've talked about all season. It's been, why isn't Styles getting more playing time? Is he happy? Why isn't he getting more playing time? Is he going to be ready? Got to develop the bench. Well, he played a ton of minutes. He had two really big plays to, frankly, keep UNC from losing in regulation. The steal on Sohan, and then he had a layup to kind of help stop the bleeding during that run. But he comes in and knocks down a three just like it's in practice, like he's in Kinston, playing against Leesville Road or whoever. That's mental toughness, the ability to put everything else out of your mind, the ability to do what you've practiced over and over, that you repped tons and hundreds and thousands of times. That's what mental toughness is. It is, if you're Armando Bacot, after you missed free throw, seemingly after free throw, is going back up to the line, and eventually the two he hit, I don't think Baylor tied it after that.
No,
I think he got it to 86, 84. They come back and eventually get a free throw, and then Leaky Black gets Bacot gets the assist to Leaky Black for the layup, and they're up three, and that's as close as it was the rest of the game. So Armando Bacot essentially won the game in the free throw line, even though you could say they didn't win the game in regulation because he didn't, hit shots at the free throw line. So just opposing all that stuff from regulation to overtime, to me, you see what Hubert Davis has seen with his team. You see what he's been trying to instill in them. And that is the real definition of mental toughness, not this fake guy, fake tough guy stuff of knocking people down and screaming and doing cartwheels and all that. That's not mental toughness. Mental toughness is what you saw from North Carolina in overtime and parts of the second half.